Hi guys, welcome to our basic comma rules video. As always, make sure that you're taking notes. You will be using them all year long. This will be a really useful reference page for you when you're doing any editing on any of your writing. So the first rule is always use commas to separate items in a series or a list. So here are some examples of that. I went to the grocery store to get green beans, cheddar cheese, and garlic. This morning I went for a walk, read in my book, and ate breakfast. So you can see in both of these sentences that there is a list. So in the first one we've got a list of different foods, and in the second one we have a list of different activities. The thing I want to point out in each of these is, as you can see, before the last item in each of these lists, before that and, there is a comma. These commas are called Oxford commas, and some people choose not to use them. I, however, personally feel like they increase the clarity of these sentences because sometimes the items in your list might have the word and in them. So using that comma, I think, is important to make sure that your sentence is as clear as possible. Rule number 2. Use a comma to separate two or more adjectives. Only do this if you could put the word and in between those adjectives and have the sentence still make sense. So again, some examples. Johnny is a smart, kind boy. Or Johnny is a smart and kind boy. So we see that with the and, the sentence still makes perfect sense. So if I take the and out, we want to include that comma between our adjectives smart and kind. Rule number 3, use a comma before and after an appositive. So what is an appositive, you might ask? An appositive is a noun or a noun phrase that renames another noun. That sounds a little bit complicated, but let me show you what I mean. It's very simple. My sister Martha is in high school. Our neighbors, the Smiths, came for dinner last night. The U.S. capital, Washington, D.C., is a beautiful city. So we can see in each of these 3 sentences, there is a word or a couple of words that are separated from the rest of the sentence by commas. So in this first sentence, we see that Martha has a comma before and after it. So Martha in this sentence is the appositive. It is renaming the noun in the sentence, my sister. It's giving us a little bit of extra information about my sister. If I take Martha out of the sentence, if I eliminate the part that's between the commas, the sentence still makes perfect sense, and that's part of how an appositive works in a sentence. So in the first sentence, Martha is the appositive. It's giving more information about my sister. In the second sentence, the Smiths is the appositive, giving more information about our neighbors. And in the third sentence, Washington, D.C. is the appositive, giving more information about the U.S. capital. So we always separate an appositive from the rest of the sentence with a comma before and after it. So rule number 4, use a comma when a sentence begins with an introductory word or phrase. So here are some examples. Yes, I got your email. Therefore, you do not need to send it again. So in both of these, we've got yes and therefore. They are a little bit of introductory information in the sentences. So we separate that with a comma. Number 5, use a comma when addressing someone. Let me show you what I mean there. Mary, what was the name of that book you loved? I hope you can make it to my party, Larry. So we can see that in the first sentence we are talking to Mary, so we separate her name with a comma. And in the second sentence we are talking to Larry. So again, we separate it from the rest of the sentence. Rule number 6. Use a comma before and after words used to interrupt a sentence. So here are some examples. Typing, however, is very quick and neat. Handwriting, on the other hand, can be easier for some. So we can see that however and on the other hand kind of interrupt the sentence, right? They're not necessary in the sentence for it to make sense, but they're there as a little bit of extra emphasis or to make an extra point. But it interrupts the sentence, so we separate it on both sides with a comma. Rule number 7, use a comma between a city and a state. Also, use one after the state if the sentence continues on. So here are some examples. The capital of our state is Concord, New Hampshire. We drove to Wells, Maine for our vacation. So in the first sentence, you can see that the sentence stops after New Hampshire. So we only need a comma between Concord and New Hampshire, the city and the state. In the second sentence, however, the sentence continues on after Maine. So we need a comma between the city and the state, Wells and Maine, and after the state, Maine. Rule number 8, use a comma to separate the day of the month from the year. Also, use one after the year if the sentence continues on. So here are some examples. I have lived here since August 21st, 2013. On January 23rd, 2006, we had a terrible snowstorm. So in the first example, the sentence ends after the year, so we only need a comma between the date and the year. And in the second sentence, it continues on after the year, so we have a comma between the date and the year and after the year. And that's all of them. So these aren't all the comma rules, but these are some of the ones we'll be practicing this year.